But over to my guest today that's known as Big Dave or David Niethe, high-performance coach that's helped the likes of Lidico, Israel Adesanya, and so much more. I've seen and always known about you on social media, seen around there, and finally sort of having a bit of a chat. I think Will, that's producing the show today, said to me, hey, reach out to Big Dave and see if we can have a chat to come on the show. And Dave, thanks so much.
Hey, it's a real pleasure to be here. And I got to say, the studio, the equipment, the setup, outstanding.
Yeah.
Well done, Will.
Yeah. So
all
to the
credit, mate.
All credit. Yeah. So obviously, Dave, a big thing with yourself. You've been in this industry, this high performance coaching, and that's for almost a generation.
Thanks for that, mate.
I know. You started when you were about 10, right? So you started when you were 10.
Seems like it. It's probably getting close to 3 decades.
Yeah. And it's an interesting one because I've got this real big sort of perception, understanding around the coaching game. I've been around in the scene, like I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, and you see all those coaches and all that sort of stuff. And that's the sort of modern nuance of coaching and stuff. And I feel a lot of it, publicly to say, a lot of it's bullshit. A lot of it's cookie cutter and the rest of it.
Fluff. Oh, don't even start me on that, mate.
So this is
fucking great way to start.
Yeah.
Because you're fucking right.
Yeah. So let's go straight out there. Like I said, I've always been a big TR fan. I went to his events. I got to meet him. And I got consumed in that whole world. And I was like, okay, great. This is the moment. I see it all. And this was only 4 or 5 years ago. And then I stepped out of it and then got introduced to all these. And that's why I almost have this bad taste in my mouth about the word coach. Because I met all these coaches and it was like, it's a crock of shit because it's cookie cutter.
Don't get me going.
And that's why I wanted to say to you, like, this is why I'm really intrigued by you because you've been in the industry and true to it for such a long period of time and actually delivering what a performance coach, mentor is actually supposed to be and not actually what a person is that's picked up a book and in the last 2 years is going to come out and say, hey, I'm this and this is what I'm offering. And another little curveball and throw in and see if you agree with me. I feel that most coaches in a really crass way is teaching and this is going to sound weird, a pyramid schemes type of coaching. So what it is I, Lawrence Lott, am now a coach to teach people how to be different in life, but I'm fundamentally a coach to teach other coaches to teach other coaches to teach other coaches. And I teach you, and then I charge you, and then you go and teach it. So I see my network circle.
It's a business within a business.
It's a business within a business going, hey, I'm teaching 6-figure coaches, and it's literally like, you're not changing the world. You're just making people fucking rich.
You're fucking full of shit.
Yeah.
I think, fuck, where do I start, mate? Honestly, I get really fucked off and frustrated. Actually, something that Will said as he walked into this one amazing studio, because, working with Will, one thing I'm really, really keen on is congruent coaching. And I think a lot of coaches, like you absolutely nailed it, they read a couple of books, they do a couple of courses, and then that's it. And then they're very keen to go out there and tell everyone how to suck fucking eggs. So I think a lot of the coaching today, we've got to appreciate. Here's an interesting stat. Now, someone might say, well, where's the research on that? But I don't know specifically, but I have heard that in recent years, the fastest growing industry in the world is IT. The second fastest is coaching.
Yep.
What's interesting, though, is coaching has the highest rate of failure as well. And that just goes to show that people are seeing it as an opportunity to make a shitload of money, hourly rate, blah, blah, blah. Tell people to suck fucking eggs, make a lot of money and call themselves a coach. So I've seen them come and go for damn near 30 years. I've seen them come and go. For me, the other thing is, like you said, it's they're cut and paste fucking coaching, mate. It really is. It's shit. For me, I think in being a coach, first things first is that you must be congruent.
I just want to go back to the congruent coaching. What do you mean by that term?
Yeah, well, that means like you're not telling someone to do something you haven't fucking done yourself. You know, it's when you communicate with an individual, I think it becomes more authentic when you know that you've walked the walk and talked the talk. So maybe in appreciating the importance of this from a historical background, I in leaving school went into the printing industry and I fucking hated it, but I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I started working on myself, and that has continued to this day. I have read and worked on myself continuously for 30 years. And I think that's really important. I think I'm very assertive in my style of coaching. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I have a very clear message that I start with, and I'm working with a client, and that is, do you give me permission to be blunt and honest? Because I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass. I think I have a style that's not everyone's flavour, but I think it's a flavour that's absolutely appropriate for the industry that I'm in with high performance, because you cannot be in a situation where you're making excuses, you're in denial, or people are blowing smoke up your ass. I will be very blunt and honest with individuals, and they appreciate it, even though it's very uncomfortable at times.
It is so true around that, and I want to take it back. I know you've spoken about on previous shows.
Yeah,
I do a bit of a trick where I inverted commas stalk my guests beforehand to make sure well aware. And you've spoken about previously about you only ever provide guidance from items that you've experienced yourself. And that's what you talk about your congruent coaching, right?
Yeah. Well, not just through experience, because that has certain levels of limitation, but certainly. In seeking that knowledge myself. So I've really worked hard, and that's a continuum too. I've never stopped learning and finding better ways to communicate. Now, the challenge that I have is, you know how some people are very good at remembering shit and articulating stuff. The weirdest thing about my style is I actually have no fucking idea, but I trust. I've got this. I don't know. I can just go to this point where I can make that adjustment because it's all embedded through all those years of study and research
and the experience that comes from it, right?
Absolutely.
And that's we'll go back in a little bit into your actual path, because someone that's listening or watching might not know your backstory and anything else, and I'd love to get in that so they can see and go, okay, Dave, you're talking about this. Talk me through what went in there. But one last note on point to you is. It is so true. You're talking about you doing things, and sometimes you might not be sure how it's done, but it's from all that big experience and the education. And again, this is something that I'm seeing in the scene at the moment, and this is where absolutely makes my blood boil. You will know this, Will. That's Will Fleming. That's behind the camera today. That's been big in the scene. Is I'm seeing people out in the mental health space. We've obviously got a critical challenge in New Zealand, and I'm seeing people step up and going, okay, I want to support in the mental health space. And then you sit down with them, and they want to become mentors or coaches, and you go, okay, talk me through what you've experienced, what you've educated, and then you go and sit down and going. They've had a privileged life, no challenges, no problems, great education. They've come out of it and have never done any research, but now they want to coach people to overcome
and tell them how to suck fucking eggs.
And I just sit there and going, you motherfuckers.
Right? Absolutely.
And it's horrible, but it's like you can't come out publicly and go, oh, you and you. That's trying to help mental health stop, because you're actually doing more harm than good. Because then. You look like the idiot that's trying to stop people trying to help. But it totally gives a
they've
hard
never
word.
Endured.
And that's the biggest thing. Not to pinpoint it on myself. Like I've met people that want to do in the game, and they come through and go, oh, but I can support you and I can support that. And I turn around and go, well, talk me through how you're gonna relate to someone.
It's fucking fluffy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all fucking rainbows and fucking and unicorns. I mean, the reality fucking is that you have to go, like I said, being blunt and honest there's a thing called the victim's triangle, and this is where a lot of people can get hooked up. They'll play the victim, they want to be rescued, or they'll persecute themselves or others. And people say, so the fourth option, they'll talk about the loving option. Well, sometimes that loving option is fucking being blunt and honest with people. It's sort of like, you know what, I'm going to pull you up on your victim story. And that's fucking uncomfortable. Yep. But people, I think when you have a coach that's too fucking fluffy, they won't. They'll almost help to embed it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, well, fuck, you know what?
They'll reinforce it.
That's fucking wrong because that doesn't fucking serve you.
Yep.
What fucking serves you is owning up to the situation, going, what is the story I'm telling myself? And how the fuck does that help me? And more importantly, is it congruent with what I want to create?
Yeah.
Because people don't understand that somehow subconsciously we start to sabotage something. We start making momentum. Sure enough, something comes along and fucks it all up.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not consciously aware of it, but it's all that underlying bullshit story that can eventually impact and manifest itself in situations.
100% with that. My story of going through a brain tumor in 2019, not knowing if I'm going to get out of it, financially being ruined from it and from everything else, as much as it was the darkest moment I've ever had in my life, I still have that as an anchor. And that's the sort of a big thing that I utilize when talking to people, because I can go back and go, like, I've got a colleague that I work with that's always stressed at work.
Yep.
And I sit down to him a lot of times and I go, what are you stressed about? And he goes, oh, it's so. And I said, do you want to really know what stress is? Understanding that tomorrow you might not be alive. Yep. And I've been told that. Once you have that appreciation, then you can actually understand. And he keeps going. He goes, Lawrence, I always just want to sit down with you because you can really put it in perspective from what is in the world, right?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think today's society is like we're very good at amplifying that victim story. It's here's a story that puts it in a bit of perspective. So, obviously, going through COVID, we managed to have a little break where we could go and visit.
Yep.
So I went and saw my grandma, and she's a very staunch Welsh woman. And we were talking. Now she was on the. I think it was when I saw her, it was within 6 months. She had passed. But we were talking. It was one of those moments where she was conscious. And I was talking about this COVID situation. I said, what do you think of this? It's, how people are finding it really hard, Grandma, and whatnot. And she said, oh, for fuck's sake. She said, have they been bombed and shot at?
Yeah.
During the war, and I'm going, holy shit, yeah, absolutely. Have we, to a certain point, when working with my clients, now, it's dependent on the individual, right?
And the expectations.
But, with a lot of these kids, it's about building stronger resilience. Here's another little example of how today we seem to be very good at creating our victim story. So here's a scenario, and I'm going to say this respectfully, so no names or information. But the scenario is an individual who is in part of high performance, and I won't say what sport, so it's even harder for anyone to try and identify, has a certain responsibility to go into a high performance camp. And part of that is, there's certain requirements, i.e. that going into camp, it's going to be dueling. You need to hit a certain weight, right? It's part of the markers set out by your performance team. This individual showed up knowing and consciously and clearly that they had to maintain their weight through the Christmas period. And this individual showed up overweight. And immediately when the coach held him to account, this individual accused them of fat shaming. Fuck me.
Yeah.
And so this individual's telling me the story, and this individual's expecting me to be that affirming, oh, that's terrible. Well, someone got a slap in the face, and I went, we talk about congruent. What's your goal? My goal is to such and such and such. So is that behaviour that you displayed congruent with achieving that?
Mm-hmm.
Your coach did you a favour. Your coach held you to account, and you don't fucking like it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the most beautiful thing a coach could have done, was hold you to account. So my suggestion now is that you apologise to him and be mindful in the future. If you want to participate at the highest level, and where you want to go is in the highest level, Olympic level, just be careful of your victim story.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful what you fucking saying, because that's inexcusable.
Yeah.
Your coach did you a favour.
So true. It is a societal thing that we come across. We are seeing it.
Yep.
We are seeing it in the worldwide movement of being gentle, being soft. In its nation, that we've got to respect certain things, and I fully understand that we've got to give respect, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But there's a difference of giving respect and having the boundaries to then overutilizing that, as you say, your victim story and your I didn't do this because by doing this. Oh, you
poor thing. Well, let's allow you to make another excuse.
Yeah,
and see what that gets you in life.
Yeah. And then it just continuously goes down that path of the victim to the victim, and then you get a person, or you get a societal movement of where people turn around and go, the big brother or the big sister or the people on top of the mountain, whatever your field is pressuring down on me. And then we've got this disjointment of a societal movement because they looking up or sideways and going, they weren't supportive. And then our community just breaks away even further.
Yeah. And I think that's, that's something, a subject that I don't know if I want to go deeper into that rabbit hole, but I totally agree. I think it's, I have got some concerns about what these kids are believing and being taught, and how they've been supported with some of these belief systems that I think are just, it's concerning.
Yeah. I've got a bit of a challenge there with my own kids, right? So I'm brought up in South Africa. My dad's an ex-military man, so same sort of everything's inside the box and the square. Look at not the same way that the world lives in today a little bit, but there's challenging moments like I have, obviously, let's say with my daughter and teenage daughters, they always push their dad's buttons, anyone pushing it. And you get into so this challenge at the moment where there will be a discussion, and as a parent, you go, this is the way it is. It's not a discussion. It's a dictatorship because this is the rule, not because I don't want an opinion. And then it automatically, and I see this in our teenage today going, well, does my opinion not count? And this is where I think, and I know I've seen by your face, I could see that this is where I think we are losing it. It's not about your opinion doesn't count, but you've got to understand when your opinion should be made.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much about the opinion as it about the feelings behind the comment. Yeah. Because they're easily offended.
Mm-hmm. It's easy offended because it's been taught, and this is where I have a bit of a challenge. It is, so I'll sit down with my daughter and talk to her and going, hey, there's situations where we have a two-way conversation. You give me your opinion, and I give you.
We've lost the art of discourse.
Yeah, and there's a situation as a parent to a child where it is one way. Hey, you go do your homework.
Yes, absolutely.
There's no response back. You go and do this, and it might seem as a dictatorship from a teenager towards a parent, but it's a one way. And then you sit down, and they're like, oh no, but we taught in the schools and everything that our opinion should always be heard, and it should always count, and all those big movements. And it's like, yes, but there's a missing part of it should be heard or be told in the right situation and under the right situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I've got adult children now, both at home. But Madison's on her way to Melbourne to start a career, and Mitchell's just started his PGA traineeship. Yeah. But what's really interesting now, we talk about the art of discourse, we talk about parenting children, and it's not really my area of expertise. But I've got to say, as an indicator of, I think my wife and I have done an outstanding job with our two kids. Two reasons. I'm not saying that there's only two reasons, but one of them is when you get unsolicited positive feedback from people. Now, here's a prime example. I go and watch my boy play a bit of golf sometimes. We went up to the local Titirangi Golf Club. And when I'm out there and Mitchell's hitting some balls, and there was a guy teeing off, and he said, "Oh, are you Mitchell's father?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "You got a fine young man there." Yeah. Now, that sort of thing, that warms my heart. Yeah. That's pretty special. The other thing is you go into their bedrooms, they're clean and tidy. Yeah. Now, is that something they just did, or is that something that they modelled and,
what's around them?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I'm not an expert on parenting, but I think I've done a pretty damn good job. And I've got to say my kids are risk takers. I like that. They're very good with customers. They're very respectful. They're well liked by others. Do they have their moments?
They all do.
Absolutely. But I'll tell you something else that's really special is when you have a daughter who's upset, and we talk about, sometimes we've had our words. Believe me, I've had the door slammed many a time. But one example, my daughter went through something emotional. She came home, and all she did was just walk in and cuddle up with Dad and cried.
Yep.
I don't have to say anything. All she knows is she's safe.
Yeah. As a dad, my teenage daughter, I've had the same moments. To learn those boundaries. I've obviously got to respect the same way back and stuff. But there is that, I've had those same moments. We've had big blow-ups. We're both as stubborn as each other. That's the challenge, right?
And you kind of like that, though.
Yeah, you like that, the stubborn.
Oh, yeah,
but then it's like, don't challenge me, right? It's yeah. But then there's the moments where she'll turn around and one night she'll come to me and she'll go, "Dad, you never said good night to me," and she'll come over and give me the kiss and the cuddle. And as a parent or as an individual, it's just like you said, it's just that moment that something's
I suppose for teenagers though, they're going. It's a really challenging time frame because you're moving from independence, from dependency to independence, and so you're trying to navigate. But you have these little wonderful moments, like talking to my daughter. She phoned me to say that she had an interview for Melbourne. And listening to the way the interview went and what she said and how she said, I'm like, yeah, that's my girl. Yeah, that's fucking awesome. Because all that stuff, even though sometimes you don't really see it, and then suddenly there's a situation and you go, wow, it was worth it, eh? Yeah. All those years of challenge. And being a parent has manifested itself. I have a beautiful young woman who's very articulate, knows what she wants, assertive. That's a real cool thing for a dad.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to take you back a bit of time back to an idol of yourself. You've spoken about previously public about Jim Rohn, about being an idol as you came into the scene many years ago, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear the story about behind this.
God, I love Jim. So obviously back in the 80s and 90s, the in thing then was sort of network marketing. Yep. You're talking about pyramid schemes. And I got involved with a few. And I'm not going to poo-poo the industry because I'll tell you something. It helped reinforce my personal development. But as I evolved into coaching, I had to do some public speaking, which – you got to appreciate my background. I mean, I've got no qualifications from school. Most of my identity is built around my immediate situation is steel cap boots and overalls as a printer. Yeah. Who the fuck am I to step on stage and motivate, thousands of people? But I had an opportunity to go and talk in Vegas. the guest speaker that night was Jim Rohn. And I was like, fuck, how awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love his stuff. So anyway, I did my talk and going out, before I went out, I was so fucking nervous. And like I said, you got to be congruent, right? So I know what it's like to really be out of your depth. And I tell the story, and my wife fucking knew that I was going to start sweating and freaking out. And I said, well, I can't go because my shirt's soaking wet.
Yeah.
Here's my excuse, right?
Yeah.
And she just pulls out another fucking shirt, says, yeah, I know. Put it on, off you go. Fucking, I mean, she's fucking fantastic, right? So I went out there and talked. And then that night we're in the Stardust Hotel in one of the little booths having dinner. And there's a hand on my shoulder. This is after the event finished. And I looked up and it was Jim Rohn. Now, fuck, he didn't have to come and say anything to me or you know, he could have just walked past. But a hand on the shoulder, and you know, in those moments you're a fuckwit, you know, you're so overwhelmed. I just looked up and went, oh, God, Jim, I love you. God damn. What off, you idiot. You know, here's your moment. You fucking say that. Yeah. But he said something so, he said something, he said, I listened to you talk, young man. You have a bright future in this industry. Now, to have that sort of affirmation, I would have been 25, 26, something like that. And it was like, wow, how fucking cool was that to be affirmed by your idol.
Yeah. Because this was in the first sort of 5 years of this path, right? Because you've mentioned about in the first 5 years you were still trying to figure out if you were going in the right way or if you were or finding your footing, right?
Mate, and I had no idea how I'm supposed to act and behave. I've got no frame of reference. So yes, I've done multiple of courses, and I read. I've never read so much in my life. But you've got to appreciate, I have a limited frame of reference. So, so when I first started, I used to wear a shirt and tie. I have no idea how I'm supposed to fucking dress or behave. I had this wonderful ambition. I had this wonderful vision. And I didn't really have a lot of I had to work it out myself, which is great. And here I am now dressed up for you. Yeah. As you can see, a nice T-shirt,
same.
Black T-shirt, But just something about your hair, mate, and you'll be fine. So, in the first 7 years, I've talked about 7-year little cycles. The first 7 years were really challenging. Starting a business. So how I transitioned, maybe I'll go back to, so I had this, I knew that I've found something that I'm passionate about. Yes, I knew that there wasn't much out there as far as coaching. I mean, back in the 90s, there was fuck all.
Was there an event or something the first time that someone said, "Could you do this for a team, a club?" That gave that tick box and went, "Oh, I've got something here."
Well, it was interesting. Now, I really struggled to go all the way back into history. You know, some people can just articulate. I don't. It's like a blur for me. A couple of key things. So. I knew that there was a couple of significant moments which I think were really important, and I think you'll probably resonate with this. So I knew I needed somewhere to work from, and I had two mates, Brownie and Dazza, my two best mates. They're the guys that on the tattoo on my back. They're my brothers. And I'm sitting there talking about this vision, and I'm going, fuck, I need to get an office. Where the fuck am I going to work? How's it going to work? Blah, blah, blah. And they just turned around and said, oh, mate, you got a fucking garage there full of shit. So they cleaned it up, and that was where I operate from home, which is, I love it, and I love my office. The other little significant moments was actually more in a transitional sense, because I managed to get off the printing press and get a job as a print sales, which I was there for a year. Well, and I hated that as well. And so I'd work at night and on the weekends. So I was Mate, I was working every night and every weekend. I didn't have a break probably for a good 5 years. I'm just working and studying and reading and working and studying. I'm blessed to have a wonderful woman in my life who was so supportive of it. I knew I had to educate myself. Now, that's something that Jim Rohn talked about, which is very important. 3 steps to greatness.
Yep.
Number 1, set goals. 2, educate yourself. And 3, have a financial plan. So the first 2 are very important for me. So I set the goal to be a performance coach. The second part was I needed to educate, and I needed to do it with a gusto.
Yep.
So off I went. Now, you got to appreciate I was on fuck all money, so we didn't have a lot. And at the same time, we sort of starting a family. And I'm blessed. My wife sold. She had inherited a piece of furniture that she sold to pay for a course for me. You know, I'll never, because it was 10,000 or whatever it was. It's an overwhelming amount of money back in the 90s when you're on, $7 an hour, so to speak. So that there was a real. Because of the sacrifice, there was a fucking commitment. If you're going to do this course, you better fucking get it all. And so just through that, I continued in my development. I needed to improve my speaking skills. I needed to improve. I'm dyslexic as well. I didn't fucking discover that until my 20s. So I had to learn.
Yep.
So overcoming all those things, and at the same time, you got to appreciate coaching wasn't a fucking thing back then. So everyone's going, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
In fact, significant moments. I remember walking up the corridor of Comprint where I was working, and one of the managers there caught me up there and said, "Hey, can we have a quick word?" I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, what's this bullshit about you doing this bloody psychology stuff?" Yeah. Son, you only just managed to pass your apprenticeship. I struggled with that. I got 51%. And that fucking hurt, you know what I mean? But I'll tell you something, success is the best revenge. I use that as fucking energy. Shit, I was fucking determined then. That fucking hurt.
Yep.
Now, instead of going, oh, maybe I'll put some doubt in there or question it, that in life you learn to reframe things to serve you. Fuck, I got busy, man. I'm a very resilient, tenacious motherfucker. If you tell me I can't do it, fuck, you're dangling a carrot. I will fuck you up in that sense. I want to go to the extreme too. And I kind of think that style and attitude suits for high performance. Would I be okay in counselling? I don't think so. I think I'd upset a lot of people. I don't have that empathy that people require. Hence why I think I've been so successful in high performance, because it's not about feeling sorry for you. It's about fucking being resilient and pushing through the pain, and that's manifested itself in with regards to dealing with pain itself. Being congruent again in doing strongman and powerlifting, you're pushing. So, part of my development initially was the physical, and then into the intellectual, and I love it.
Yeah, there's a famous saying that's been around for generations, and that's hard work will beat skill any day. And I think we still forget about that.
Yeah.
And then we see let's say, for example, in New Zealand, we see a Dan Carter come through, or a Richie McCaw come through, or any one of
or Lydia Ko.
Lydia Ko, right? Israel Adesanya, right?
Absolutely.
And then you go through going, oh, he had the skill. Yeah, they've got base skill there, but the hard work.
Fucking A. Here's 2 stories.
Yep.
Right. So someone said to me, why was Lydia so successful? And I said, part of it was because she used to ask one little question. And that question was, can I just hit one more?
Yeah.
Right. Now let's set the scene. So she'd arrive after school to the range, and she'd work with Guy, and she'd work on a golf swing. And she would be the last to leave. And so at 10 o'clock at night, Mum's tired. And fuck, her parents got a lot of shit saying they pushed her too much. Are you fucking serious? They supported a young woman who would constantly ask at 10:15,
one more.
Can I just hit one more? So that's, and then go home and do her homework. Yeah. Now, when we talk about fighting and we talk about Israel, this guy had something like 100 fights in a year. Guys today have 5 fights and think they're world champs. Yep. Fuck me. Get a sense of perspective, people. Yep. They say that he's got all this nice stuff now. He fucking absolutely deserves all that stuff right now. He has made the sacrifices. I think Israel and Brad Riddell were telling me some of the stories of how they had to go and find fights in the back streets of China. I mean, these guys fucking pioneered and what they had to go through. And now suddenly it's a big thing and everyone's...
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny. I ran into Izzy actually in Vegas. So he won the Super 8 in Auckland. I went to go watch that. He actually fought, because I've boxed before, he fought my coach, Asher Derbyshire, who's now in Wellington. So he fought Asher. Asher got caught in last minute. Izzy won the event and walked through most of the guys. I ran into him actually in Vegas for Manny Pacquiao Mayweather fight. I was in Vegas for that. And it was a crazy circle, because actually I played rugby with Eugene Behrman. So with Huge, so me and him.
Another great man. Far out.
Okay, a lot of, so Huge, I played with him for 2 seasons. He played flank. I was in the front row. And a lot of people,
a flanker.
Yeah, he was a sort of
fucking glamour boy, eh?
Flanker. But it's funny, because you look at Eugene, you don't expect much from him. So, Israel Adesanya's coach, anyone that's watching, listen, you don't realize that he was his own fighter.
Absolutely.
And the only reason he stopped at the end, because he actually snapped his leg in his last fight. Yeah. Us close enough boys knew this about him. So we would be on the rugby field and, a scrimmage would happen. I played for Massey, the Massey Mafia. We were a bit of a wild bunch. They won the league for a couple of years. And a guy would grab him and go, okay, we're going to have a biff. And none of us would grab Eugene to hold him back. We would grab the other kid and go, you don't want to do this.
You get fucked up.
You don't want to do this, right? So no one ever had to go like, Huge, no, don't worry. We're like, dude, you're going to get killed, right? Leave him alone. So it was crazy. And I think back of it, because he actually told me about city kickboxing that time and said, hey, you should come down and join the gym. And the only reason I never joined it was I was working at the very bottom of town and city kickboxing's at the top of town. So I found a closer gym to that. And it's funny, I think sometimes how differently my fighting career, and that circle would have gone and known those boys. But going back to Izzy, when Izzy broke through, when he literally came onto USN, wasn't he still living in a sleep out in the backyard of some guy's house?
Fuck,
I mean, if you go look at the original content of when they did it, he was in that the room sleep out with him and boys sharing for the rent and then getting the contract. And then people go, look at him now going, that was only like a couple of years ago in his path that he was still on a couch in a house to share to make it happen.
You know what's beautiful is one of the first things he brought was something for his parents.
Yeah. And that shows true to where it is, right? A lot of the sports stars or the high performance business, they all do that. You look at Anthony Joshua, right? For his family and everything else. I think, isn't he still living in the same neighborhood that he grew up in? It's not called the townships; it's called the. I don't want to say the projects, but in the UK, he's still based into that space, bringing to the family, because it's the hard work over skill mentality going, I did all of this. There had to be people who supported me, and I relate back to those people.
I working with Izzy, right off the bat, you get a real sense he's a very sharp man, very intelligent. And he was destined. He's got the work ethic, he's got the intellect, and I think the other key thing, and this is really important too, is surround yourself with like-minded people. Who are the people that you hang out with? If you hang out with fucking losers, you will become one of those losers. And so what they've created at City Kickbox is outstanding. So it feeds an ethos.
Yeah.
You can't sort of see it, but you can feel it when you go in there. I went in there once to observe and catch up with Junior Far and
that's right. You've been
Junior Far and Hemi.
Yeah. Hemi's a powerhouse.
Fuck. So there's this fucking concrete pylon in the middle of one of the rooms, and Junior's up against it. And Hemi, they're doing 15-second cycles of in the gut with
blitz. Yeah,
I'm watching this, and I'm sure this pylon's moving, and Junior's looking at me going,
yeah,
and Hemi's going, but I'm unbelievable watching that. Yeah. It's just in awe of these guys. Yeah. I get excited about high performance. I love winning. Mm-hmm. I'm a very competitive person. I believe in ultimately in life. I think we've been given the gift of life, and out of that, we have a responsibility to be the best we can be and all we can be.
Yep.
And whether that's shit, if you're going to be a plumber, don't be a plumber, be the plumber.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a fighter, don't be a fighter, be the fighter. And these guys, the way they trained, it's awesome.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I had Dave Wood on a few months ago.
Oh, he's a good man too.
And I spoke to Dave. He was talking about his breathing coaching and all the rest of it with the fight camp. And one thing I spoke to him about, which was really interested about Izzy as well. Talking about Izzy was always first, and he was always the longest. Yeah. And anything that you could see online when they're doing the beach training and stuff, he was always first up the dunes. He was always the one hard in the running, the hardest. But where and it's funny, something we spoke about, where I think the difference came into it, and that's again that mindset that comes from understanding yourself or being coached to understand yourself. There's the one skill that Dave teaches them about the calmness under the water. You'll be well aware of this. That's part of his forte. And the whole, as he doesn't breathe through his mouth during the fights, the whole nasal breathing thing, again, a massive thing I'm a big fan of. I think you know Gareth Edwards, a friend. Gareth's a good friend of mine as well. And that coaches that. And one of the big things I saw from it was a moment where they were going under the water, staying as long as possible as you physically can, and then you got to get out of the water and be in the right state to then continue. So this is teaching the mind of being under pressure and coming up and staying calm.
And staying calm.
And one of the craziest things when I watched that footage, and you can go and find it on the UFC one, it's the 2 camps back, is he stands up, being literally to the last second that he could physically stay under the water. He stands up and he doesn't go, he stands up and he's just straight calm, straight away there, and gets everything under control. And that just shows that whole reinforcement of being him understanding what it is, him providing that guidance by the right coaching and the rest of it, and bringing it together and seeing what the human body can entail,
what
right?
we can do, Right? I mean, it's the last frontier, isn't it?
Yeah.
In some ways. And we know probably more about the universe than we do about the deep sea, but we probably know more about the deep sea than we do about consciousness and the mind and what it's capable of doing. And that's fascinating.
I mean, one of the biggest people out there that portrays, whether you like him or not, and he's one of the biggest inspiration to me, is Joe Rogan, right? He's one of the fundamental reasons why I do this, what I do, right? And he's always that guy that has come out and, hard work, all the rest of it, but then he will show something freak of nature and that he does in stuff, and everyone goes, but sometimes how is that possible just from him doing it? Like I was watching a video this week where Bert Kreischer, I don't know if you know, Bert Kreischer, the stand-up comedian that comes on stage and takes his shirt off and he goes, one thing you never do to Joe is never challenge him, never make a challenge. And they started doing Sober October many years ago, and I don't know if you know the story on the first one. This was the first time doing Sober October. On day 1 or day 2, Joe did this video, and he was like him and his Labrador, for her name I forgot, and he was doing mountain hills. And he did a video, and he's like, hey, it's Joe, me and dog. I've just done 2 miles. I've just done 2 miles up on the hill, for Sober October, everything else. And Bert saw this, and he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to make a comedic video response to Joe. And so he went on and he did a bit of a jog. He didn't have his dog with him, but he was like, did a video, goes, hey, Joe, you've done 2 miles. If you do 2 miles, I'm going to do 4. If you do 4 miles, I'm going to do 8. And I'm here with my dog, and he goes, oh, where's the dog gone? I've lost the dog, as a total joke. And he said it was the worst thing he's ever done, because the next day, I don't know if you know this story, next day, Joe got into his own home gym. So he's got his own home gym set up.
Yeah.
Joe triggered the fire alarm in his home gym because he put so much moisture in the room for how much he was sweating over that day, because he was like, no one fucking challenges me.
Mate, look, and here's the wonderful thing about this is something that I think is really important is you set the environment, right? So for me, I'm a member up at Wolf's Gym.
Yeah.
So I love the environment there. And one thing that I'm going to blow my own trumpet here for a little bit. One thing I am fucking competitive, right? And I think that that's kind of important because it sets an environment. It sets the scene. Like when I go in there, generally they're playing my FM or whatever, and I don't write rap music much. But the music will change because they respect that I'm going to be training. And I've got to say, I'm training with guys half my age, and I will challenge you. I hate fucking losing, mate. And I get a real kick because I truly believe in pushing myself and pushing them. It's win-win.
Yeah,
you know, I love that feeling of I love training. I love pain. You know, I love that feeling.
I'll give you a bit of a bravado moment. Many years ago when I was in my late teens and I was in the gym scene more than I should have been at my age.
Yep.
A bit of a bravado moment, so anyone that's listening, watch, don't hate about it. But I was in there. I was playing high performance in baseball and rugby in my career, national level, up into my early 20s. And then also I got into noticing I had a lot of power in my legs and my thighs. That's why I call my African ass. So I was very strong in my legs. And one time I was back in South Africa. I was at our local gym in there, and I was doing something downstairs, floating around, and I heard this guy screaming from upstairs on the leg press machine. And we were a local full-size gym that it wasn't a big boys. It wasn't a Wolves that's, fully respecting it. It wasn't a big boy gym. And I said to my mate, I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So me and my mate, we walk up and we look in the corner where the leg press and the squats and all of that, they hide in the corner. And here's this guy on there, he had racked up a decent amount of weight.
It was on the leg press?
Leg press. It would have been like 400 kgs, so a decent amount of weight to a normal person, right? It's a big chunk of weight. Most of the sides are plated. But I could see from the outside looking in, it wasn't a guy that was screaming because he knew what he was doing. He was screaming because he was going, hey, look at me, right?
Fuck, I hate that.
You know exactly what I'm talking
Fucking
about. So I said to my mate, I could see this straight away. And I said, okay, this guy's an absolute arsehole and he's been a twat because he wants the world to see.
You're going to do something that I've done.
Yeah. So I said to my mate, let's just wait. So we sit there, he does a couple more sets, him screaming through each set. So finally I'm like, okay, enough's enough. So as him and his mate that's standing there, as they're about to finish, I walk right over and I go, hey, you guys done? And he goes, yeah, we're done. And the guy goes, oh, do you want me to unrack? And I go, no, it's fine. So as he steps up, literally he takes 2 steps. I step into it. I drop the side and I do 12 dead quiet.
Yeah.
And I rack it, I step up and I walk away. And I can remember this guy looking at me. And I said, my friend, he is never going to come and scream in the gym again. And just like I said, a full ego moment there. But I thought it was just something like, dude, you just got to understand your space.
Well, look, it's interesting. We talk about gym culture. That's part of the reason why I went to Wolves. What I really, one of the most iconic places I ever trained was the old Gold's Gym, Simon Street.
Yeah. The dungeon.
Fucking A, mate. And if you couldn't bench 200, don't fucking show up, And if there was any screaming there, it was justified in the sense of there was a substantial amount of weight. And that sort of culture, that sort of meathead mentality, I kind of miss it. You know, I miss those days with my boys.
But at the right place in the right situation, right? And that's where it is true. The dungeons are amazing. Being in those circles, you know, amazing. Like in my 20s, I got into the bodybuilding scene. I got to meet Phil Heath. Phil came on a private event here. She's 10 years ago. Shotgun Supplements actually sent me private tickets for it. And I don't know if you were around for that event or anything about it, knew about it.
I'm not a fan. I'm not really that much into the bodybuilding.
So I got into the physique class because I'm too tall and still I'm carrying a lot of weight now, but I was rocking in the 90 kgs at that stage. So, there's a different community and base around it, but it's also understanding, like I said, time and place. You know, so the dungeon in Simon Street, you know, Wolf's here, totally get to it, but it's in understanding of where. And I think it's that historical point in society of understanding that, and then we see people in our society today trying to think they can be that in the wider world and not realizing the place and not knowing where to do it. So it's, for example, like a guy walking into city kickboxing going, okay, I can take anyone on. You know, those.
Good luck with that, buddy. And you know what? That's a concerning thing, is that we seem to have this sort of delusional sort of mindset with some people out there.
I grew up, my old man went to the world champs in kickboxing. He placed third in the worlds. One of the best fighters. He was the best fighter in South Africa for his age, one of the best in the world. I grew up seeing that. I went into the fight camp. I've boxed and I've learned and been humbled in the boxing. There's nothing like this is the truth. There's nothing like fighting and having someone punch you in the face, really.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't care how many rounds you think, how many rounds you've done on a heavy bag or how many rounds you've done on the mat, till someone actually taps you out cold, punches you in the face. You don't know what you're talking about. And it's that humility, not just in the fight scene, but in the life as well, right? And
I want to reiterate and build on that, because I was over at where was it? North Shore. Went and watched some of the fighting over there.
Oh, the event centre.
Yep. And it had all finished, and we were walking out, and there was a whole lot of guys having a bit of a punch-up.
Yep.
And
after the fight, or actually
after the fight, right? You know how, like I say, everyone's a fucking, isn't it interesting how everyone that's sitting in the seats watching the fight
thinks he's a fighter,
fucking knows and yet, have you ever been in the gym and ever been punched in the face, like you say? So there's this brawl going on, and I get fucking pissed off because, you respect what these fighters do in this country in particular. That's who I sort of work with. And you know what? They're good, hard-working people. Yeah. And when they go to these fucking fights, they don't get paid a shitload of money. Fuck all. They get paid fucking nothing, right? And what would certainly help is to have an environment that we can maximize the capacity of the place and maximize the cost of it so that they could get some sort of financial compensation. But if these fucking assholes out there fighting, can you imagine? That's part of the reason people don't want to go. Yep. So I'm losing the plot here. So I walked in the middle of this freaking, and I basically said, hey, this is the reason why these fuckers in there, you want to respect those fuckers? Mm-hmm. This shit's got to stop, because this is why we can't get fucking numbers here. Yeah. It's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, it did stop, thank goodness, and I didn't get knocked out by some fucking heavyweight. But it really upsets me because I know how much time and sacrifice goes into whether it's boxing, fighting, kickboxing, MMA, whatever. Yeah. And that's, to a certain point, that's scalable across all
areas of life,
all sport and all areas. You have to endure. You need to sacrifice. You need to build resilience through that. That sometimes the pain is the gift. The frustration is the gift. And we kind of look for it to be in, the glory of winning. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, mate, the glory is in showing up day after day after day.
So true. So the boxing coach Henry.
Yes.
Yeah. So he coached me when I got into my ring, and to anyone that knows, Henry's a sort of a boxing coach where you'll go in there and you'll push and you push, And then he will just keep pushing till the end point. So I'm standing in the ring there. We're doing pad work, and he goes, "Cool, give me a straight," and I throw it, and he goes, "No, give me a straight." And we literally stand there for like 2 to 3 minutes till I throw one that is happening. He goes, "Great, that was the one."
Yep.
Now I want 10 more of those. And it took 3 minutes to give him the one, right? And
how cool's that?
Yeah. And that was and again, yes, we're talking a lot about the fighting, but it's the same stuff that can be done in life in the sense of I had to do all of that to get to one component of what I was trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
And having to then repeat
in pursuit
and
of
reach.
excellence. Now, today's society, everything's flashy on fucking line, and everyone seems to think that all I have to do is intend it, and it will manifest itself. Not, fuck me. Like I said, Izzy has had more frickin' fights than you've had hot dinners, mate. You know what I mean? And I think there's a disconnect and a delusion about the actual work that's involved.
Yeah. It is so true. I mean, people, and again, it comes back to we will end off the show in the sense of it comes back to that whole full circle when we started the show and got fired up in the sense of we're seeing people coming in on 1 step and 2 step and expecting to help change the world. You got to give your time, you got to give your grunt, you've got to go down there and grind the way. For me, for example, in this scene in the podcast game, I've only been in it for 4 years. I'm still in my infancy. The man behind the camera, Will Fleming, you've been in it for 8-9 years, I think it is now. I looked at the other day, 2015, one of your podcasts you launched out of there. So I go, I think I'm one of the longest in around, and I'm going like, no, there's more and there's more. But that just, from my perception, that just gives me the right motivation.
It's sort of humbling because here's the thing: I've been doing it damn near 30 years. I'm realizing more and more I've got so much more to fucking learn. I actually feel like I've only just started to finish my apprenticeship. In fact, I was talking to my wife the other day and saying, I actually feel like I'm really starting to do some really good work. Wow.
It is so true. Like I said, I'm in infancy. I'm only 4 years into this path. I've just done a pivot again in the last sort of 3 months. I've done a full pivot on that and feel closer to where I should be. But I'm fully respecting that 2, 3, 4 years down the path, it might happen again because the route takes us differently, the path takes us differently, life takes us differently. And that's sort of something we just got to pay attention to out there, that the first decision is not necessarily the right decision, but make the right decision now and let it take its path.
And commit to it fully. There's a little saying, if you want to walk on water, first you got to step out of the boat.
Love that.
Yeah, well, that's fully committed, eh?
Yeah, it's the same one as you would have heard this, the Tony Robbins one, if you want to take the island, burn the boats.
Well, actually, the story behind that, eh?
No?
Well, let me educate you. What? It's based on the story of the Vikings. When they went in to conquer a new land, the mentality that they had. And I kind of like that Viking mentality, Full commitment is arriving, sussing it out, unloading the boats, and there's no going back. So you're here now. You cannot. You burn your boats. There's no going back. Make it work.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Talking about you liking Vikings, I'll talk about you something off air. I might have something that you would absolutely love that I'll get into. But anyway, there we go. But anyway, Dave, we're coming up to the end of the show. It's already been an hour. We're going on.
Jeez, already?
Yeah. Is there anything for our listeners or watchers at the moment you would love to leave them with, a last thought or a last point for them to ponder about over the next period of time?
There's a little saying that I do like. And that is, any thought that you continuously hold in your mind will soon seek expression through some practical means.
That is amazing.
Thoughts become things, mate.
That is amazing. I love that, Dave. Where can we find you?
If you really keen to find me, you'll find me.
Yeah. That is the best one. That is definitely the best one.
Yeah.
But to anyone else at the moment, thanks again for coming over to the Wolf of Country podcast. I hope there's something you could take away from the discussion between myself and Big Dave. If you're in the scene or if you're looking for the guidance or all the rest of it, have a watch of this. Have multiple watches of this and take and resonate. Like we said, there's so much we've got to learn in this world. There's so much we've got to take away, but we've got to experience and go for. And I am, for once, I actually am publicly calling out people in this coaching game that is bullshitting and trying to say they can change the world. Please stop that, because you're actually doing more detriment to the society than actually helping them. Put your time in, learn the ways, learn the grunt, experience it, and going through the turmoil that you need to, and get the humility to actually understand how we can make a difference and everything else from there out there. But as I always say, and at the end of my show, I don't care about you subscribing or liking. I care about you listening to this, and if it's something that resonates with you, take that away. Or someone else that needs to hear this, tell them to come over and listen to this and try and change their lives, because we need to change society and make it a better place for the generations coming up. But at the end of the day, stay beautiful, stay powerful, and hope to see you again.